Good morning, welcome to CATEX-TV. My name is Frank Fortunato. This is a live broadcast from Princeton, New Jersey. Today is Friday, September 4th, 2009. It's 11:30 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time in the U.S. It's 4:30 p.m. in London. If you need to reach us during the broadcast, you can phone in toll-free at 1-866-67-CATEX. Overseas, our AOL Instant Mail address is CATEX-TV. A couple of housekeeping notes. This coming Monday is a federal holiday in the United States. It is the Labor Day observance. Our offices will be closed except for systems emergencies, and there will be no broadcast this coming Monday. Next week, however, is the annual Monte Carlo Rendezvous down on the Riviera in France. And we will be having a special correspondent beam in at least one time who is going to be over there, and that is Rod Fox, who's the CEO of Tiger Risk. We'll be speaking to Mr. Fox at some point next week. As soon as we have the exact time, we'll post it on our site, and we'll be getting his interpretations of events as they're occurring over there. Now, we'll go to our main news. There was an earthquake several hours ago in Japan, in the Tokyo area. Hit about 10:30 a.m. Friday morning Japanese time. That would be 2:30 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. The earthquake was about a 4.0 on the Richter scale. It was not particularly big. As you see here, it's the two blue ones. There was one right inside Tokyo Bay there, pretty close to Yokohama. And then there was one a little bit further afield, about 220 miles to the southeast. There were no warnings of a tsunami or earthquake-caused tidal waves. It was a little bit of a rattler. There were no reports of any injuries or damages, but it did occur in the middle of the workday on a Friday. The Los Angeles fire has in fact now been viewed as an arson investigation, and since two firemen were killed, it's a homicide investigation. The mammoth blaze in fact was set deliberately. Firefighters and officials claim that in fact it was a deliberate act of a person. Since two firefighters were killed in an accident relating to the fire, it has now become a homicide investigation. The U.S. Forest Service said arson investigators have concluded that the fire was the result of the act of a person, so the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department Homicide Bureau has investigated a homicide investigation into the deaths of the two LA County firefighters caused by the fires. The fire was the largest in Los Angeles County's history. It's burned more than 147,000 acres, an area the size of the city of Chicago. It's destroyed 64 homes in just 8 days. Yeah, they've been getting a little bit of a break with higher humidity and cooler temperatures, so containment of the fire as of this morning is up to 38%. However, 12,000 homes and 500 commercial buildings are still listed as being threatened by the fire. There was some news in New York. The new New York State Insurance Superintendent, pictured here, Superintendent Wren, made an announcement yesterday. It's a move widely supported by industry advocates. He approved new rules that are going to make it easier to write some categories of high-risk insurance that are typically placed into the excess market. The department has added 9 new insurance categories to the so-called export list, meaning that brokers need not obtain 3 declinations from the standard market to place a particular risk into the excess market. Here are some of the categories. Vacant commercial property, which you can imagine is pretty hot now with foreclosures, multi-peril risks for contractors, special events, prize indemnifications, employed lawyers' liability, contract frustration, commercial property and commercial umbrella excess liability coverage with high limits. In addition to these moves, the New York Department has added a host of risks to the export list which will require only 2 declinations before being placed in the excess market. Those are coverage for alcohol or drug rehab centers, residential facilities, daycare centers, group homes, halfway houses, hospice service care providers, foster care service providers, and home health care providers. These are all tough to place covers, no doubt. When the plan was announced last year, many agents in New York State applauded the move, saying that the 3 declinations rule was a time-consuming, bureaucratic process that ignored agents and brokers' knowledge of the risk appetites of the standard market. When do the rules go into effect? They're in effect. They went into effect immediately upon the publication yesterday. Some economic news: the U.S. unemployment rate has jumped to a 26-year high of 9.7% during the month of August as non-farm payrolls dipped by 216,000. It's the 20th consecutive monthly decline. Now U.S. payrolls have dropped by 6.9 million to 131 million since the beginning of the recession in 2007. Unemployment has increased by about 7.5 million during the recession, almost up to 15 million. Some bright news: the 216,000 decline in payrolls was below market expectations of a 233,000 drop. Stock market's actually up about 9.8 points. News from north of the border is much better. The Canadian economy unexpectedly added jobs in August. This was a surprise that analysts said was yet another sign that Canada is recovering from the economic turmoil. The Canadian government said that 27,000 jobs were created compared to the 10,000 job losses that had been predicted by analysts. The unemployment rate did rise to an 11.5-year high of 8.7%. One commentator said this is a surprisingly solid result. I think it fits in very nicely with the story that the Canadian economy is beginning to recover. Prime Minister Stephen Harper has recently said that they are seeing the signs of the worst of the crisis for Canada, while warning, however, of more job losses in the year to come. We'll go to a word now from our sponsors and come back with the rest of the news. Stock market's up about 23 points. News from Afghanistan: NATO jets blasted 2 fuel tankers, truck tankers, hijacked by the Taliban up in the northern part of the country. They set off a huge fireball this morning. It killed up to 90 people, unfortunately. About half of them may have been civilians. NATO said that a large number of insurgents or Taliban members were killed. However, the alliance's chief in Brussels said that it was possible that some civilians died. The governor of Kunduz province said 90 people were killed. A senior Afghan police official said that about 40 civilians who were siphoning fuel from the trucks were also killed. The airstrike is likely to intensify concern over civilian casualties in the war. President of Afghanistan, Hamid Karzai, said that targeting civilians is unacceptable for us. NATO said that they did not attack until they determined that there were no civilians in the area of the tanker. By the time a German military detachment arrived in Kunduz, the tankers had been charred completely, and there were no signs of any human remains in the area. The tankers are used commonly in suicide bombings, which is why NATO wanted to blow them up. In China, out in Xinjiang province, there's more difficulty going on in Urumqi, the capital of the region. Today there were protests by thousands of angry Uyghurs over a string of alleged syringe attacks.